Good morning, Emmanuel. What if you thought you had 6 months to live? How would you process that? What would you be thinking? What would you be feeling? What would you be doing? Would you get anxious? Would you get fearful? Would you tighten up? Would you let it go? Would you let it all hang out and just live wild and free? Would you live like you were dying? Maybe go skydiving, mountain climbing, 3.7 seconds on a bull named Fu Manchu. Now, none of us, it's kind of like Jesus said when he was here, none of us know the day nor the hour of his coming, and none of us know the day or the hour of our going. There may be some of us here who are yet alive and remain on earth when the Lord comes, when the trumpet sounds and the church is caught up to be with the Lord in the air. The Latin word is rapturo, the rapture. Some of us may still be here for that. We don't know that. Similarly, the scriptures teach it's appointed unto man once to die, and after this the judgment. We will all have an appointment with death unless we're still living when Jesus raptures his church, as Paul taught in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. So what, though, would you do if you thought you had 6 months to live? Would you live more urgently? Would you live for things that matter? I read just a while ago, this is from the World News Group. They send out a daily email. The SIFT, they sent something out from former U.S. Senator and University President Ben Sasse, or Sassy. I would say maybe it's Ben Sass. I don't know. He had a stage 4 pancreatic cancer diagnosis. He was supposed to be deceased in December. He had a 60 Minutes episode, which I'd like to watch now. Maybe we can do that. He's 54 years old. And he shared how he has valued how cancer has forced himself to tell the truth to himself. And he says this: the lie I want to tell myself is that I'm the center of everything, and I'm going to be around forever, said Sass, who has been vocal about his faith as a Reformed Christian. And I can work harder and store up enough that I can atone for my own brokenness. I can't. And in fact, when they had this interview, he was living on extended time because, like I said, doctors estimated he had a few months left to live in December. So he should have been deceased a few months ago. And so he's been married for 31 years to his wife, Melissa. And he acknowledges that they are going to be apart from a time, for a time when he passes. He laments not being there when his daughters, who are in their 20s, get married and his son, who's 14, becomes an adult. But he said it hasn't come as a surprise to God. So you and I do not know when we're going to pass. Sometimes we're surprised when we live longer than we expected to. Sometimes we're surprised and our life is cut short. We have no idea. But what if you thought you had 6 months? How would that change the way you live every day? Well, one, I have hope that we've been in Philippians on Sunday nights. And I have hope based on Philippians 1 and verse 21, what Paul said, for to me to live is Christ and to die is gain. And his passion was, according to my earnest expectation, what I expect earnestly for Christ to do, my hope that in nothing I shall be ashamed, but with all boldness, as always, so now also Christ shall be magnified in my body, whether it be by life or by death. I want Christ to be magnified, to be made huge in my life, whether I live or die, because to live is Christ. Whatever Christ wants to die is gain. And he felt this tug of war between living and dying because he knew he could be with Christ, which is far better, but he felt it was more needful for, like these saints at Philippi, to remain in the flesh, write these letters, be there to minister, build them up in their faith. So if your approach to, well, I think I may have 6 months to live is, well, I better go skydiving, I better go Rocky Mountain climbing. I'm not going to go skydiving if I think I have 6 months to live. I might go Rocky Mountain climbing, though. At least Blue Ridge mountain climbing. But I know this, I'm going to love the Word of God and the God of the Word. I'm going to love Elizabeth Rose Springer with all my heart. I'm going to love my children, and I'm going to love my church. Fulfill the work Christ has given me here at Emmanuel. And I'm going to live that way with urgency and intentionality every day, because frankly, whether I have 6 months or 60 years, all I know I have is today, and I'm not even promised that. This shirt is Luke Alexander Hawk's graduation shirt. He was supposed to graduate 4 years ago next month from East Coweta High School. He had this shirt on order to wear under his graduation gown. But 4 years ago, this past April 8th, he was murdered. We watched Luke about 4.5 years ago. We watched the heaviness of knowing his mom, who at that time was given like a 5-year prognosis, Mrs. Donna Hawk, with a cancer she had. We watched the heaviness of that settle in on him. We came together, prayed as a church that fall, as much as we prayed for other people here before. And then we watched God heal her, and we saw this kind of burden lift off of Luke. And it's like the winter into spring months of 2022, that young man became a man. And he lived so purposeful, so intentional. If you haven't heard the story about him writing on his locker room or his locker marker board, that verse from Joshua 24, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." And he lived that way. And even the last Wednesday we saw him, he was back to his old self, messing around with our kids and tickling them. And he was driving the escort vehicle on that Wednesday night because we were not meeting in the building. We were meeting up the hill at the house up the hill because we were having septic problems down here. And so we had to meet up there. And so he was driving our old Trailblazer around to pick up anyone who didn't want to walk. But he didn't even know that week, that Wednesday was his last Wednesday night with us. We didn't know. And we miss him deeply. We love him. But Paul said he's with the Lord right now. He's with the Lord. Paul said another thing about those who are saved believers. He says in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, I think it is. 1 Corinthians chapter 6 and verse 17. "He that is joined unto the Lord is one spirit." And Paul was saying this to say, hey, run away from fornication. Don't join your body to a prostitute. And he was arguing because saved people shouldn't join their bodies to a prostitute or someone like that, because their spirit is one with the Lord. So there is an intimacy and a closeness that I have in Jesus if I'll just believe it and live like it's real. I already have it in Jesus. I'm already seated in heavenly places with Christ. In God, I'm there and the Spirit is here. So it's kind of mind-blowing to me that right now our dear brother and Brother Tommy and Mrs. Evelyn and Grant Boyd and my grandfathers, they are present with him, and at the same time, spiritually, I am one spirit with him. So all I'm saying is this. I don't know if I'll have tomorrow. You don't know if you'll have tomorrow. But if you thought you had 6 months to live, I would plead with you to live, not thinking you're at the center of the universe, but realize the one who holds the universe together, you are joined with him. And he loves you, and you are his, and he wants to work through you to show his love to the world. Make your life about him, because when you die, you're going to be with him anyways. That's what matters. Make your life about him.